Okay, so let's get started. Today's masterclass is how to improve any area of your life. And I'm just going to take a moment here and share my screen. Okay, so when we talk about improving our lives, I wrote down a few areas here that I commonly hear and that I relate to. So when I talk about improving any area of your life, it can be your health. It can be a relationship. That could be a romantic partner. It could be your child, a friend, in-laws. So any relationship. Um, it could be talking about improving your career. So maybe you want more meaning in your career. Maybe you want more money. It could also be your time. So how you get to spend your time, right? So many women say, I want more time to spend with my family, to spend with my children, or maybe you want more time for yourself. We also might want to improve the area of like having a deep sense of purpose and meaning that is not just in our personal lives, but in our work lives as well, right? So we want it in both areas. And then, of course, there can be the one-off area, if you will, when we're trying to achieve a specific goal. So maybe it's running a marathon, maybe it's trying to start a business, or maybe you have a goal of going back to school. So all of these areas are places where we are interested potentially in improving at any given time in our lives. And I want to look at what I call the old way of improving these areas and the better way, or the easier, more effective and efficient way. Okay, so the old way is to look at our surroundings, our circumstances, and the people around us and try to figure out how that can change. So, for example, that might mean if you are not finding meaning in your work, you might look for another job, right? If you are not satisfied in your relationship, you might decide you're going to end that relationship and try to find a different one. It also can look like trying to change someone else. So, a relationship is a great example of that. If you have a spouse and you and your spouse are not seeing eye to eye on a certain situation in your relationship, we often will go to, hey, I need you to change, right? I need you to be different in this scenario. We're also taught that if we want to improve, we need to work harder, right? So we need to put more time in, more effort in, and that means more sacrifice, right? Less downtime, rest, less time with our family and friends. And then we also might believe and have been socialized to believe that in order to improve, we need some type of learning, right? Some type of education or a new skill. And I think the biggest one is that we have been socialized to believe that if things aren't going the way we want them to, there is something wrong and we need to fix ourselves. So further on in this training, I'm going to talk about the reasons why all of these things don't actually work. But to start with, to summarize, I'll just say that this way is complicated, okay? Because it requires you to rely on external things and people changing or doing what you want them to do, okay? It's also ineffective because, as we'll learn later in this class, it goes against how the brain naturally works. And it's inefficient because it takes a lot of energy, time, and sometimes money. So what I want to talk about today is what I call the better way. And the reason why I say that is because the way that I'm going to teach you, it works with your brain, right? So it doesn't work against it. It works with our brain's natural functioning. It helps us to focus on what we have control over. So rather than relying on situations or people to change the way we want them to, we can focus on what we have control over. And I think one of the more important things is that it teaches us how to have useful thinking as opposed to positive thinking. And we'll talk more about that. So again, this way is simple. Okay. Now, don't mistake simple for easy. It is going to take some practice because however old you are is the number of years you've been doing it the old way. So it is going to take some practice, but it's simple. You don't need any special skills or training. Every human can do this. It's effective because it is based in science. So it's based in how our brain naturally functions to create change. And so results are long lasting and they're sustainable, right? Because you can transfer this learning to any situation in your life and it's efficient. It really only takes a few minutes a day to start practicing this. And so you can implement it no matter how much time you've got or what your circumstances in life are. Okay, so let's look at kind of what's happening in the old way. So we have been socialized by society, by our parents, maybe by your church, right? Media, all of these different areas. And one of the main messages has been that things, circumstances, right? The things that happen to us throughout the day, the words that people say, and the things that they do, as well as our past experiences, right? All of these circumstances create our experience in the world, or in other words, how we feel. So what that means is we believe that when someone says words to us, they can make us feel something. It's why we'll say, you hurt my feelings. And vice versa, we believe that our actions and behaviors can make others feel certain things. We also will say things like, oh, I'm really not, I'm feeling kind of down today. It's just rainy and shitty outside. Okay, so we'll attribute our feeling of maybe depression to the weather, to a circumstance. And we've just been taught that this is how the brain works, okay? In the better way, or when we consider what's actually happening for our brains, there is a circumstance, right? So something is happening, whether it be the weather or an interaction you're having at work or with your spouse. There's a circumstance, and that circumstance is neutral, right? And what is happening is we are actually having thoughts about that circumstance, right? And we don't always notice them, right? We're not trained or taught to notice these thoughts. Okay. We do recognize usually the feeling we're having, right? Like I'm angry or I'm feeling joy or sadness. So what is actually happening is there's a circumstance and your brain makes it mean something. And it's making it mean something based on all the things I've already suggested, right? Your religion, how you were raised, what society tells us, the media, your peers, so many different things are influencing what your brain makes that circumstance mean. And that is what creates our feelings. So it is not the words that someone says, it is what our brain makes that mean. Okay, so our experience of life, how we feel every day, is a direct result of our thoughts. So what does this mean? Okay, so it means that if circumstances are neutral, okay, so all situations, words that people say, the weather, all of these things, they have no meaning until we attach a meaning to it, until humans attach a meaning to it. Okay, so what you can identify as a circumstance is anything that's a fact. So anything that if you put in front of a court of law, everyone would agree on. Everyone in the world agrees on this thing. Like the sky is blue, or it is, I don't know what time it is right now, it's 8:36. Okay. It could be, I am 42 years old. These are all facts. They're neutral. They don't mean anything until we attach a thought to them. Okay. Over on this side of where circumstances are here, we have no power, right? We cannot choose. Circumstances just are, facts just are. Our thoughts are our opinions, right? About the world, how it should be, about ourselves, about others, right? This is our interpretation. Our thoughts are not facts. They're different for each person. We know this because, if you're like a crime show junkie and you are watching that tale unfold, you'll notice always that there's more than one story, right? So there's one circumstance, like maybe one murder, but there's multiple stories. And this is because brains are interpreting actions in different ways based on their socialization, based on their belief systems, okay? So subjective beliefs learned again from culture, child rearing, religion, society, all these things. This is where we have power, okay? We get to choose those thoughts. Right now, most of us are like not even really aware of our thoughts and how they're impacting our daily life. But the fascinating thing is that we can change those, right? So if we start to become aware of a thought that is creating a painful feeling or a useless feeling that causes us to maybe like give up on our dreams or, nap when we should be working, for example, we can start to notice those and we can work to change them. Okay. Your life is determined by what you think. So it's exciting news that you get to choose that. So some of the takeaways I want you to have right now are the way you have been thinking is not wrong. So I do not want you to start to judge yourself. This is all conditioning, and we just haven't been taught to be aware. Okay. I also don't want you to think that you only need to think positively. I want to emphasize, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, that you want to think in a useful way, ways that get you results that you want in your life, not always the most positive thought. Recognize that your current thoughts are only an option, right? So they're just an option and you don't have to judge them. They don't make you a bad person, right? But you get to choose what you want to think. And listen, everything in the world, everything that we are thinking, every meaning that we attach to something is made up. Yeah, it's made up already, again, by all the socialization. So you get to go back and review all of those like common thoughts or beliefs that you're carrying and say, like, do I want to actually think this? And is it serving my life? And so, yeah, the final point there really is just saying what I've already said. Like, focus on awareness of your current thoughts and decide if they're useful. Okay. So why is this important? So the way the brain works is our thoughts create how we feel. And those feelings are what drive us to take action. Now, this is just like a biological survival mechanism, if you will. Like we had to have feelings back in, the caveman days, because if we didn't, we wouldn't do anything and we'd die. Okay, so feelings are a necessity. And they are created by the thoughts that we have. And certain feelings, well, all feelings create certain actions, right? So they motivate us in some type of way or not, right? So they drive us to take action or to not take action. So for example, to procrastinate, to lay down on the couch, to not do things. And just to summarize, we often mistakenly attribute our feelings to the circumstance, right? Which is the wrong thing to look at and the wrong thing to try to adjust when we're trying to make an improvement or make a change. We want to be looking at our thoughts, okay? So here's what it looks like. And this is how it always works, okay? You have a circumstance. In this one, I've just said revenue in my business. So for those of you that are running a business, this may really hit home. And for those of you that aren't, I hope that it's still relatable, right? So the circumstance is just revenue in my business. There's nothing subjective there. That is a very neutral statement, right? When I think about the revenue in my business, my thought is I have no idea how to make money. Let's say that's my thought. That thought makes me feel confused. And from the feeling of confusion, some actions that might happen are perhaps I'll ruminate about how much I don't know, right? I'll just sit all day and be like, this is going to be impossible. I don't know anything. I might look for answers everywhere, but not try anything because I'm in that confusion state of I don't know. I'll start to shut down, right? I'll stay confused. I'll go do something else and I'll give up. And the result of this is I don't figure out how to make money. So what you can see here is one, the thought always relates back to the result. So this is what people mean when they say, like, you get what you think, right? It's true. And this is why, because this is how the brain actually works. So trying to change your result, for example, here, by changing just your actions is never going to work, because even if you try to change your actions, the thought that I don't know how to make money is still there, and it will interrupt your pattern, your behavior pattern, right? And you won't be able to take actions that get you different results. We have to go back to the thought and figure out what works there for us, right? How can we have a thought about how to make money that creates a feeling that drives actions that are useful to figuring out how to make money? So if we look at a new version of this, where we're going to create a more useful thought, the new thought is, it's not, when I say it's not super positive, what I mean is it's not the opposite of I don't know how to make money, right? It's not, I don't all of a sudden go to, I know exactly what to do. The brain knows that's not true. It's not going to be believable for you. And so it's not going to have any effect. But can you believe that I will figure out a way to make money? Probably, right? That feeling creates, for me, a feeling of determination. And from determination, I do things like take action by trying new things, right? So I may still look up, like I did in the last version or the last example, different ways of how to make money, but this time I start taking action, right? Because I have the thought I will figure it out. I'm willing to fail, right? And I learn from my mistakes and I don't give up. And the result is I put make more money here, but I'm going to say that the result is actually I figure out how to make money, right? So my original thought was I can figure it out, and then I do figure it out. So the thought will always be reflected in the result. And this is how we make change. This is how we make improvement in any area of our life. We start to get aware of the thoughts we are thinking and what type of feelings they're creating and actions they're creating. And then we decide, is that useful? And if it's not, we go back to the thought. We don't try to change the circumstance, right? We don't ditch our partner maybe right away. We don't ditch the job. We go to our thoughts and try to find something that is believable for us, right? So not overly positive and useful. Okay, one quick thing I want to say about this is before we go to changing the thought, I just want to make sure that you're not in a really intense feeling. So when feelings are really intense, like anger or sadness, like hurt, self-loathing, any of this, you don't want to quickly jump to your brain and start to analyze things and figure out where you can make a shift. The reason being is because when emotions are high, logic is low, right? We know that. We've all experienced that. And so what we want to do here is to let that feeling, that intense feeling, process. And what that looks like is don't avoid it, right? Don't try to get away from the feeling. Don't do something else to avoid feeling how you're feeling. Don't resist it, right? Just actually let it be in your body and don't react. And so the easiest example of this is if you are angry, it is like to step away from the situation rather than exploding. Okay. So process that feeling, feel that feeling first, and then go to choosing your new thought. And when you're choosing your new thought, here's just a summary of what we've talked about. Decide what you want the result to be. Identify what you might need to feel, right? Like, do I need to feel committed? Do I need to feel determined, confident? What is the feeling I need to feel in order to take the required actions? And then what could I think? What is a useful thought that is also believable to me, right? Not positive, but believable and useful to me that would help me generate the feeling of committed or determined, whatever it is you want to create, right? So when you learn how to manage your mind in this way and notice your thoughts and become aware of how they're making you feel and the results that they're getting, it becomes possible for you to choose new ways of thinking that will get you new results. And the beauty of this system is that, like I said, it works with the brain's natural way of being, right? So we're not working against it, we're working with it. And it goes to the root of your problem, right? Not just the symptoms. And once we can change the root, which is the thought, and once we can start believing this new thought on autopilot, now it's just maintaining itself, right? You don't have to go back and continually update and continually work on this. You've just created a new thought, which takes practice. Remember, it's simple, but not easy. It does take practice. And then that new thought just, again, starts to run on autopilot the way the old one does, except now it's getting you the results that you want. Okay, so just some guidelines, and I think most of this we've probably already covered really well, but do not judge or criticize yourself for the original thought. That is useless, and it will cause you to spin out and go into kind of self-loathing and give up. Just don't criticize yourself. Your brain is always working to keep you safe and to look for pleasure and avoid pain. That's all it's doing, right? It has nothing to do with you. So don't judge yourself. Do not try to only think positively. Remember that it's more about whether the thought is believable for you and useful. And do not try to force a thought that isn't believable for you. This is a very extreme example, but if you're dealing with body image, for example, and your thought right now is, I hate my body, do not try to think, I love my body, right? The brain will be onto you. It'll be like, no, we do not, right? So you want to just back it off to a place that feels believable for you. And for some people in that example, it's, I have a body, right? Or it might be, I have a body that functions well and takes good care of me. That you might be able to drop into and believe. Okay. And then recognize your current thoughts and remind yourself that they're only an option, right? You get to choose what you think. Focus on awareness of your current thoughts and decide if they are useful, right? And again, choose new thoughts that are believable and useful. So these are kind of just like opposite, like things not to do, things to do. I want to remind you that you're already unconsciously creating your life, right? This is how the brain works. How you're thinking is already getting you the results you have. So I just want to challenge you to do it on purpose, right? Do it with intention. This is how we make any improvement we want in our lives in any area. Okay, so if you have questions or you want some help with this, please reach out to me. I'm always available. I love to have these conversations. I am here to help. And thank you so much for joining me today on this masterclass. I can't wait to see you again next week. I will be sending out information in an email on Tuesday morning about the next masterclass, which will be next Thursday. And I think this one is going to be at 11 a.m. Central. So I hope to see you there, and everybody have a really great week. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here and I'm going to end the recording, and I look forward to seeing you again.